luxury as a service. And I think that's what makes me different than a lot of people. I mean, obviously everyone is providing great service, I think, but
Right.
it is very personalized with me. I
Right.
don't even have a CRM, believe it or not. Like, I don't send
You have
out,
a spreadsheet at home?
I keep them all in my MLS database. But like, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, I get so much business just from, people reaching out to me that I don't need to touch. I mean, I do touch them in different ways,
Right.
but they know that they get my full attention.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today's guest is a superstar with one of the most respected brokerages in Northeast Florida, Engel Völkers First Coast. She has exploded in March with $5.5 million in sales, a volume with 6 transactions, a super month. She is recognized by the Jacksonville producers as one of the top agents in Jacksonville. She has a decade of interior design experience. She is passionate about her clients in real estate and gives the personal level of service. She's an expert in the greater Jacksonville market, having been born and raised here in Northeast Florida. Let's welcome the second Ed White High School graduate this week, Holly Reaves Griggs, to the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me on the show, Tracy.
Did you know Gigi Urbanski? She's an Ed White graduate.
Not.
Yes.
It's been quite some time since I've graduated. So I don't know that I keep in contact with a lot of the
Right. I was just going through your LinkedIn, and I'm like, Ed White again?
A funny story, I grew up in Jacksonville, but I grew up off Heckscher Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, they didn't even have Dames Point Bridge. Really, the only school for me to go to, the best school at that time was Ed White, but it was quite a haul every day, but
Did you? Wow, that is to go all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
What was 295 like at that time? Was
not as crowded as it is today. Yeah. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, glad you come down.
Thank you.
I mean, what a march, and I know you consistently, and I know you looked up at the office. I'm sure not only at Engel Völkers, but others are looking at what you're doing. I was going through your social media. I mean, what those beautiful townhouses though that was on the YouTube video we were talking about.
Thank
and
you.
I see I look like the finished products in some of your Instagram photos from those.
So we're not quite done. That's one of my investors, and he and I have worked together on other properties. I've kind of evolved where, I help buyers and sellers, but I also work with some investors where we build spec houses. And this is one of them. I found the lots for him. It were 2 lots, a double lot, and this was probably back in 2021. I told him he could do 4 townhomes there based on the size, connected him with an architect, Colin Speltz, who is very well known, and came up with the townhome design, and I rented out the properties for him while we did all that because, it's about a 6-9 month process.
Right.
And I've been involved with the design ever since, so picking out the interior finishes.
One of the things it brings up that's interesting, and having talked to some, if you want to call them younger agent, newer agents there in the field, you saw 2 lots, and how difficult was it for you to go and find out the information for your investor and say, hey, you can make these into one, we can make it into a townhome.
Right.
So I assume you're going to have there's some sort of HOA there with the 4 owners.
There will be.
Yeah. How did you find out that information? How difficult is that?
So really it's more about knowing the codes, the local codes for the different beaches. Jacksonville Beach, Atlanta Beach, Neptune Beach, they're all a little bit different. How much pervious, impervious calculation based on the square footage of the lot you can build, what the setbacks are. Knowing that and knowing that it's zoned in multifamily, told him what he could put on the lot, and
Right.
we were able to get 4 townhomes at a really good size.
Was that just, obviously, this wasn't your first rodeo doing something like that, but the first one you did, who would someone go to kind of get kind of that information that you're talking about, to kind of be able to confidently say, hey, yeah, we could put 4 townhomes in here and, turn them?
Really, it's just calling the city, and then you start to learn about the officials, and they learn, who you are, and when you call them, you need, different codes. They'll send you all the, specifications that you can do on the different zoning lots.
Is it as simple just going in there and saying, hey, I saw these 2 lots, can we do this? And they take it from there? I mean, how much information are you giving them? Because I'm thinking of that, someone who's never done it before.
Right.
And being able to go, what kind of questions would they ask?
So they won't take the information and run with it per se to say, hey, can I do this?
Right.
You have to
'Cause it all has
present
to be approved,
what
right?
you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And typically it has to be on a plan. So really you have to get pretty far involved with it. But that's why you have a good inspection period if you're the buyer and you want to do, a multifamily, project on a lot. But, for me, I know that the side setbacks are 7.5 feet. In Jacksonville Beach, you've got a rear setback of, 30 feet. You've got a front setback of 20 feet. So basically knowing those setbacks, and then you kind of fit the structure of what you want to fit on the lot, and you see, is this going to be wide enough? Is it going to be something that someone can walk through and it feels like it's a good layout?
Cool.
So, yeah.
Cool. I think, discovering these are little treasures, really, especially the multifamily.
Right.
If you could find a multifamily residence, a duplex or triplex, anywhere that,
Right.
You want to get your hands on it. It's hot. It's
Right.
gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those two lots together probably cost about $1.5 million, and at the end result will be a $9 million townhome project. And I'll know every single last finish that's going into
Right.
those because I'm involved with the design,
Yeah.
which is a unique thing for me.
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
have a little niche going. It all started with my husband and I guess it was during COVID, not really in the height of COVID because we were all busy, right? It's my best year yet. But just before COVID, when
Right.
everything was kind of shut down and no one was really knowing what we were going to do, there was this little REO property, and REO is a real estate owned. Basically, it's foreclosure. It had 30 offers on it, and we won that property, and it needed a complete gut. So we got involved in that, and I was basically GC and, handling everything, the subs and managing them, and did the finishes. The property ended up having multiple offers, but that kind of started me into the whole design and
Wow.
how I do.
Well, taking
today.
your past, having
Yes.
done that before, to take it to
Correct.
what you're doing in real estate and expanding your client base,
Correct.
or your
Yes.
customer base. So give us so you had 30 other offers on this property. This is what I find interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think? Why was it your offer? What was it that you came up with that stole this from the other 29?
Probably first and foremost, it's cash. Anytime you have a cash offer, and it was, $330,000 was the sales price. It wasn't a big property, a big sale, but knowing where to strategically place your number, we bid, I think, 330. It was 299 was the asking price. So you always want to go just above where everyone else might go. Most people are going to bid like 300, 305,
Right.
325. We wanted to go just above all that.
Because you already did the evaluation that if you
Yes.
spent whatever amount of money on this home, it could sell for
600. It
Yeah.
sold for 600.
wow.
Yeah.
I think that part right there is where a lot of agents could really expand their horizons like you did. I mean, to learn that, to go in there and evaluate. Did you go in did you go evaluate that property yourself and say, okay, hey, we need to gut that. That's going to cost this much. Where did you get those numbers? Because this was your first one, right?
It was. So at the same time, I was also renovating my personal townhome that I bought in Atlanta Beach. So I already had some subs, that I was working with,
Cool.
and kind of knew, I've always been in design and liked things, to do with renovating houses, but never really done a full renovation till then.
Right.
But after that, too, I think, it's this property had a pool, making sure that you get it inspected, and you kind of use that inspection report to know where you want to go after that.
Yeah.
We had to replaster the pool and put a new roof on. We painted the exterior. We pulled all the floors out, all the cabinets out on the inside. It was a complete gut. We kind of took it down to the studs, but we didn't take the drywall off,
Right.
We did all the electrical, plumbing was new, everything.
Right.
But once
So-
I did that property, then I think my investors really, their eyes got big, whoa, she knows a little bit about this. And
Got
she
her hands
knows-
dirty.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the property had multiple offers, and nothing had ever sold for that price per square foot at that time.
Wow.
So, I put something out there, and we just tested the market, and it had multiple offers.
I know this is normally a conversation we have 45 minutes into the thing, but this is good because we're on this line because I think
Yeah.
this is important. As an agent, as it was about 2016, if I saw correctly, when you got into real estate, so you're 8 years in, going on 9 years. How important is it, or has it been for your career to continue to grow, to expand you've invested in your own properties, you've done flips, now you're already got an eye out there for developers are already talking, people you're talking to are like, hey, if you can find a property, let me know, I might be interested in, the townhome project. To start to dabble in some of these things, to start to have some of these contractors on your speed dial, because I think, as we go, the demand is so high. the builder's quality is not that great. These older homes are built better, but they need some
Well, people
freshening up.
today, they want character in a house, you know, and I think that I have a good eye. I've always had that, whether it be for design or interior design, you know, like fashion as well. But allowing my creativity to flow, and what I'm doing today is just so much fun for me. And I definitely think it's a niche.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, when I started in real estate in 2016, I was selling life insurance. I was in a call center and I was taking my breaks and lunch hours, and I was calling my customers back. So I did that for about 1 year, and then I realized that I was really doing a disservice to my customers, and I needed to quit the life insurance. So I went full time into real estate. You know, and I thought I would just be a real estate agent, you know, like everyone else is.
Just sell single family homes and
I didn't know it was going to lead to all this.
Right.
But right now, today, I have 9 design projects that I'm managing that probably total about $16 million. I've got, and all 9 of those will be listings. So it's really neat whenever I'm the designer, because I know everything about those products. And then I take them to market, and I can take the people through there, and they know exactly what they're getting. You know, I can sell the product.
What's the, you know, thinking about, 8 years ago, you're coming in, you're working part-time basically, right? And in Moldova, to now how people are calling on you as a serious resource. I mean, that's a lot of, these are big projects, $9 million townhome projects. I mean, these are, serious projects, and they're relying on you and your experience and professionalism. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great. I mean, obviously I'm very busy, but I'm never too busy for, any other customers that may call me. And I get a lot of referral customers. I would say it probably took about 2 years until, I got my feet wet in the business, and people started calling me back. And, people tend to stay in their houses like 3 to 5 years. So at this point, I'm getting, parents, and then they're moving, or they're, having babies and getting married, and, people keep calling me back.
Right.
So I've got a great sphere of influence, and that trickled in with the investor business. It was fantastic.
Being, born and raised here, and I was reading through your bio, and I kind of put a couple lines in the different bios where I put that kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm going to use the word I would use. You have a heartbeat. I think you said the nightlife and everything going on. You're trying to express that, hey, I'm involved in the community.
Yes.
How in your relationships with these clients and them calling you back, the fact that you are involved, you're down at zoning, you're seeing what's going on, you're hearing the different things, and obviously some of the social and entertainment things that you were kind of expressing there in the bio, that you know of, how that has helped you build these relationships and these people calling you back.
I live at the beach, and so I work, I play, I do everything there. Live, work, and play, where I dabble in business. And it's pretty much a 10-mile stretch, Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, Atlantic Beach. So I know that area very well. And I think that in order to be a really good agent, you need to be hyper-focused on your area. So my farm area is the beach. Most of my business is out there. It's not that I don't go outside the beach. I do. But for the majority of it, it's right there. So I know it very well.
This is generally one of the last questions I asked us. So we're on the hyper focus thing, and what you believe in. As an agent coming in, or maybe an agent who's been doing this for a few years, is kind of scattered and running all over the place. I know some agents have changed brokerages because they thought it would expand their thing, or some people have joined Engel Völkers because they feel it has that international presence.
Yes.
But really, here you're with Engel Völkers, and you're talking about Ponte Vedra Beach is your space. You own it.
Actually, probably Jacksonville Beach, Neptune, Atlantic. I dabble.
Well, it spills over.
It does. Definitely spills over. But, it's funny. I've been with Engel Völkers 5 years. I've been with 5 brokerages in my career, though. And
all right, those all weren't on your LinkedIn, though.
No, they weren't. So 5 different brokerages, but 5 years with Engel Völkers. It's the longest I've been with any brokerage, and I do love it there. I think that we started out as, we had 26 advisors, and we've grown now to, I think, 140. But, it has that local boutique feel, and one of my taglines you'll see on my Instagram and places is luxury as a service. And I think that's what makes me different than a lot of people. Obviously everyone is providing great service, I think, but it is very personalized with me. I don't even have a CRM, believe it or not. Like, I don't send
you have a spreadsheet at home?
I keep them all in my MLS database. But I know that Corey's going to say, "What? You don't do that?" But
you need to download that.
To be honest with you, I get so much business just from people reaching out to me that I don't need to to touch, and I do touch them in different ways,
Right.
but they know that they get my full attention. My expertise, I think, goes beyond the design and the personal, interaction. I think it also goes like I'm an expert in portability, and that's a very important feature for like sellers. Before they sell, you have to make sure that you have maximized your portability so you can take it to the next house.
Right.
But I don't think anyone's out there doing that either. I mean, there are companies that charge to do it, but I do it for my sellers when I see the need.
Actually, I was talking to my boss, and she was talking about portability, and they have they have lunch and learns or whatever and classes about it, but I don't think enough agents are, because I think right now, and you can agree or disagree with me, insurance is so vitally important right now.
It is.
Getting that quote up front so they know what they're dealing with. And then portability being that second thing. You need to be an expert in it.
Yeah.
Not say, you could tell me more, because you obviously, this is something that you're dealing with the client. I personally, that's not an interaction that I have too much with them.
Yeah.
But to be able to explain it to them, again, going back to the county, saying, hey, what is,
Yes.
how's this going to change things for me? Because I think, one of I just closed a loan on the last day of the month. The current property taxes were like $700 some odd.
Yeah.
It's now a $400,000 property. I don't know how long the previous owners were in it, but it's probably a while. They had some different exemptions. Obviously, those taxes are going to go like $4,000, and so these people are going to get a shock in November of 25 when they get that new tax bill. So letting them know this stuff up front is important in continuing your reputation and service.
So definitely with a buyer, it's important to let them know. Like, a lot of lenders will send the estimate for the payment on a buyer, the principal and interest, and they'll estimate the hazard insurance. But I see it all too often where they're estimating it based on the current taxes. So I always like to let them know, there's a tool if you go to Duval County Property Tax Estimator, and you can estimate the property taxes. Now you have to put in the assessed value. Now, who knows what the assessed value is? It's always a different scale, sliding scale. So I would say they probably use about 85% of the sales price in most cases. They don't include things like commissions and stuff like that in the full price to assess your property. But if you plug that number in, deduct the homestead exemption, you can get the estimate of what it should be for the customer.
Right.
Now, on the sales side of it, like for a seller, I've got one right now where I'm actually designing her property. We're doing a full renovation. It's going to be listed next week. Excited about that one in Jacksonville Beach. But she has been in the property 5 years. So when she bought it, it was $355. We're going to list for $725. So her market value has not grown as much as it should, because it's an algorithm, right? The county takes the algorithm and they base that
off how much money they need.
Right, exactly. With the homestead exemption, your property taxes cannot go up more than 3% annually.
Right.
But your market, people get that in the mail, the trim notice, the truth and millage rate, right? And they get that in August, and they go, oh, yay, it's low. You don't want the market value to be low. You want that to be as high as possible. If ever you look at that market value and it's not in line with where it should be, which is about 85% of what you could sell it for today, then you need to be talking to the county about raising that value. So I've done it for many of my sellers when I see the need. But what I have to do is very involved. So I have to send them... they base it on January 1st. So like we're in April right now. So the property that I'm listing next week, I'm going to help my seller as well. But I have to go back to January. I have to pull comps, from basically last year, December or whatever. Send those in to them. Show them that the value is higher than what they have online. And then they will reassess that based on the market, again, the market value they reassess. So it's going to increase her portability when we help her find the next house.
Right.
It's confusing.
No,
I know.
Yeah, to verbalize it, that I wasn't focused on that. What goes through what you're telling me and just blows me up is you get detailed like that.
Yeah.
And that has been part of your success, is because you are going the extra mile. The average agent isn't doing that. They're just going to toss them off on the county a little bit, and then whether or not the person does it or not, the fact that you're doing it, or basically bringing the horse to the water and making it so easy for them to get it, to get the information that they need that they are not even thinking. They're not thinking about this.
No, you know that you can only take, there's a maximum of 500,000 in portability, right, that you can take. Every 100,000 equates to about 2,000 annually in savings for the rest of the time they own that next house. So it's very important. And once you sell a house, you can't go and fight that market value with the county. Or you have to have an addendum signed by the buyer, and I have an addendum that I use at times if we don't have time to get it disputed and get that appeal, turned over for the market value. But in a lot of cases, because most agents, are not knowledgeable about it, they don't know how to explain it to their buyer if I'm on the listing side. Hey, sign this because their properties are going to be reassessed next year anyway. It has no effect on them, but I'm trying to help my seller get their market value up. So the key is to do that before you list.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about AI before the show.
Yeah.
Someone can create a GPT to actually do that.
I need to learn how to do
that. We got to call Carrie and tell her, how do you create a GPT?
I love that podcast with Carrie. It was so informative, and I'm trying to get more into AI, and not to be unauthentic, but to use it to help my business in ways like this.
Yeah. To be able to go the extra mile without spending a lot more time. But
exactly.
I think you would agree. I could just feel it from you that you focus on every client that's in front of you and try to provide as much value. That you can say, oh, they're buying in Ponte Vedra. They make enough money. They can afford whatever the taxes are, so I'm not going to bother,
Right.
They'll figure it out when they get there because I don't want to take the time.
When you go that extra mile, that's when they know that you care about them.
Yeah.
I mean, really, all of my customers are like family to me. If you think about the time that you spend with a buyer or even a seller sometimes, it can be the amount of time that you have a baby. So you carry a baby in the womb. But they really do become like family, and I miss them when the transaction closes. But then they call me back, and I get to help their family and their friends, and so it's all a win-win.
I saw, I don't know, it was a reel or somebody comment, because I listen to Bloomberg in the morning, I come put on the TV there, and that for the next period of time, where they thought interest rates are going to go down, they've gone up. So obviously you have a lot of people like, oh, I'm going to wait for interest rates to go. So they're still on the sidelines. It's like you may be working with some of these people for a year or two.
Right. You really can.
It could be.
Yeah.
Or you need to be continuing touching them until that point, because you don't want to, hey, you got the app now. Oh, they can't really afford what they want. Nothing's good. It may be 24 months before, whether rates or whatever happens that makes it now affordable. Right. You want to keep trickling on those people and keep reaching out to them for future clients. We jumped ahead a little bit, so I'm going to go back a little bit in your history. You spent 15 years at AT&T.
I did, yes.
Corporate America. Imagine you were in a lot of sales there.
Yes, I started out in directory assistance. Remember when you used to call 411?
Yeah.
It's now all automated.
Oh, that was you? Is that what we were crank calling you?
Christina, please. I use my middle name, not my first name. But I would work like night shifts, and oh my gosh, it was really tiresome, because I would go in at like 11 o'clock at night. I'd get out at 7 in the morning. Then I'd have a split shift the next day at 9 a.m., so I would just sleep in the break room for on the couch for an hour or two and go back in. But I was in many facets in that industry. I excelled there as well, and I think it's because I'm a people person, so I'm great at sales. But I evolved to, where did I go from there? I think I went into collections, and then I went into small business. I was Bell Mobility for a while doing tech support. I transferred to Charlotte, North Carolina, in about 2002. I was there 2 years and then moved back. They transferred me back, but I was kind of bored with Jacksonville a little bit, and I Googled online. I was single at the time. Where's the best place for a single girl in her 30s to live? And it said Charlotte.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going.
Charlotte was becoming a financial hub at the time, right? To try whatever area there. Yeah.
And, I still have some great friends there to this day. One actually visited my husband and I about 3 weeks ago, and I just love those people there. They're amazing. Yeah. Really great people.
So
great city.
With all the corporate training, your experience managing people, dealing with people not only on the phone, but you were in some management positions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
What can some of the things that you do today, if you take a moment, maybe you don't even think about it, that you learned? That's 15 years there from pretty much one of your first jobs, professional jobs, 15 years. What do you take there? Some of those experiences, some of those trainings to what you do today?
I mean, I would say that in Bell South, I was leading people, leading them to success in sales in our organization. There was always quotas. We don't really have, I guess you kind of have goals for yourself in real estate, not really quotas. But I think what it came down to, with me in Bell South and why I was successful is because I'm a people person, and I know how to manage people. I'm kind of I don't want to say a chameleon, but you can be a chameleon and adapt your personality to whoever you're in front of, and I think being able to do that, sets you apart from the rest. So there's some people that other people just can't be around or, get along with or manage, and, I was able to get to
It's
them.
interesting you say that. So the previous book, two books back actually, it was written by, it wasn't a classmate, but he graduated a year before me at the Citadel, and I've mentioned it on the show. Marine Maxims is the name of it. But he recorded his entire 30-year career in the Marine Corps, retiring as a colonel, and he studied leadership. And he quotes and references a lot of these books that have been written over, go far back, Greek times, right?
Yeah.
Talking about leadership. And it's really well done. But one of the things I caught from him, and actually there was another person that I had on the show, and I can't think of who it was right now. It'll come to me. But it shocked me, their understanding of dealing with that person in front of, because everyone's different. Where I had been for a lot of times, and probably why I don't really want to get into management, because I always felt like, well, I just treat everybody the same. No. You do when it comes to, rewards and stuff like that. You don't want to, but how you talk to them or don't talk to them.
Correct.
Right. Some people don't, you don't need the less you talk to them, the better you are.
Right.
Let them go do their thing. And how important it is to be that chameleon that you're talking about.
And, customers are really the same way. So whether my customer is in real estate right now, my buyers, my sellers, my investors, back then in Bell South, it were my team members. But you really have to be able to adapt to different personalities.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. And people want to be heard. They want to feel like they're heard and they're cared about, and that you care about their well-being.
You're on the same page as them. I imagine some of the investors, when they're talking to you, that you're seeing obviously they have a vision.
Right. For them, it's not emotional. It's more, ROI. What's my return on investment?
Right. How can I see this? How can I deliver it and still and make $1 on it? Yeah. Do you, I imagine you've taken some of the disc or what that kind of stuff.
I'm an ENFP.
Yeah. When you are like going, how do you evaluate someone basically? Because I think a lot of people go and take those trainings, or they go and take the disc test, or they go and sit in one of the seminars and they learn. Okay, how are you actually processing that when you're in front of someone new that you've never met before? Like, are you actually thinking in your head while they're talking, while you're asking questions, going back and forth, actually thinking, is this person a D, an I, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
How do you evaluate that yourself?
For me personally, I'm an ENFP, so I'm an extrovert, intuitive, feeler, perceiver, and I think that really takes me a long way with my customers. I have a standard form that I use if I'm speaking with somebody brand new, maybe it's a buyer, and I go through those questions. During that conversation, I can kind of gauge, who they are a little bit. I get a little bit of background about them. I tell them a little bit about me, and I think from after that call, I've kind of learned a little bit more about them and how we're going to interact together and how they will best perceive it.
How when you're, and this is just it's popping into my head, but I've got to ask because that's why the curiosity of how people process. I should have been a psychology major. I've said that a million times in my life.
I know, it's very interesting.
How people think and have a discussion even outside of just buying and selling the home or that investor, to kind of, and some of them aren't so welcoming to, give you, it's not like you're digging into too personal, though you have to ask some personal questions like, where's your money coming from? Right? You got to know that. But to get to know, like, hey, what their kids' names. Some people go as far as the dogs and the cats' names and stuff like that. How important is that? Have you learned that in your leveraging relationships? Because obviously people calling you back, they like you. Yeah. So you must have been something you did that you got the trust feeling with them.
I think you learn what's important to them. I've got customers right now that I'm working with, buyers, and they were actually buyers, and then I helped them sell their house last year, put them in a rental, and we're finding them another property now to buy. But they love their dog. Their dog is like their baby, and they'll send me pictures of their dog, and I, blow kisses at the dog, and when I see them, but I love animals myself. It's just they know that I'm kind of involved with them and what's important to them.
Do you troll social media to find out something about them?
No, I've got a questionnaire that, when I first met them, they were brand new, didn't know them. They were a referral from another agent down in Orlando. And, I have my questionnaire I go through. And part of that questionnaire is, tell me about, do you have any kids? Do we need to be looking at special school districts? Do you have any pets? Do we need to look at a big yard, a fenced-in yard, things like that? So you find out those questions. And it's not really, it's intuitive after you're done, but you haven't really,
When they say that you have a dog, they don't just say, yeah, one dog. No, they say, my dog, his name is so-and-so, and they write a paragraph.
Oh, no, I have some customers, they'll go on and, oh, yes, and his name is Bodie. Bodie's our baby. Or Olivier, or whoever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
You dabble a little, you get, I think it was like 2010 or 11, you get introduced to interior design. You worked there for a few years at the design and staging company. Is that?
Well, it was my own company.
It was your own company,
Yes.
So you started your own company. Where did you? So at that time, what was going on? Leaving AT&T and doing that. Where did you see a need, or it was just something in your heart that I love doing this? I need to.
Let's see. It was 2008 when 2008 a lot happened, right? That was a recession. A lot of companies, shut down, Bell South included here in Jacksonville area. I went on to other things. I took a little sabbatical, maybe traveled for a year, and then I was like, what am I going to do? And I've always loved designs. I was actually buying and selling, design merchandise and doing a little bit of staging, and that kind of led me into, it's 2016, I said, I want to get my real estate license. I've always been, enjoyed real estate and designing and staging the properties and all of that. So why not get in and start selling them?
Right.
So it kind of led, one thing to another. But, I think a lot of people don't want to get their feet completely wet in the beginning, and they're scared to make that transition. So they, hold two jobs, and like I did in the first year. But then it just really took off.
Yeah.
I'm more of a person, I can't be tied down, and I don't know how I did it 15 years with AT&T.
Right.
Because
they moved you to Charlotte, so broke the trend a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
And I did. And then I was a leadership coach there for a while. So I actually had a territory like Charleston and Greenville and Raleigh, and then I was based out of Charlotte. So I was traveling for a bit, and I was in a leadership role where I coached the managers. So that was fun, because I'm out of the office. Like for me, being in an office all day is, I just can't handle it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I love what I do so much, because every day is different. It's always a new challenge. I always learn something different in this business, but regardless, I'm around people and I'm learning so much about them, and they're all different.
Right.
Yeah.
So you dabble a little bit in life insurance prior to making the jump in the real estate in 16. What's easier? Life insurance or selling a house?
I guess it depends on the day.
Right.
But, for me, selling life insurance, I don't I'm not the type to be on the phone, all day. And you're taking calls. I mean, you're helping them with a service and giving them something they need to make sure that their families are taken care of. God forbid something happens. But it was a stepping stone. I knew it was a great company. I enjoyed working there. Some great people.
Right.
But it was definitely a stepping stone. I knew that all along.
I imagine they had some sort of sales training
They did.
to go through.
Yes.
And not just their product, but, I mean, because it's a lot of calls, right? Isn't that primarily what you imagine? You probably thought, I used to work in a call center anyway, I can handle making those calls, but there's a little burnout after a while.
There is.
It took 12 years for me doing it in the mortgage business to finally get out.
And a lot of companies want you to have scripts these days, and for me, I've never done well with a script.
100%.
I'm so off script, it's pathetic. I don't want to read from a paper and you tell me what to say. Let me be myself. So I think that's the problem with me and those kind of companies, because it's not a good fit.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I started off at Quicken Loans in 2005, call center. Then they started to evolve. They had some scripts then a little bit. It got a little worse. I went to Loan Depot, was working from a call center situation for a couple of years, and they really wanted you to use that script. And I know the guy writing it, I wasn't really impressed by him.
Yeah.
I know it was his baby, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, that's not me.
Yeah.
That's this guy I don't even really, I'm looking at him and going, you're somebody's buddy that got this job.
Right. And then they want to time you on the calls, too.
They're listening in, and
and you're going to be timed. You got to hurry up. And, it's not that I go slow. It's snail's pace, but at the same time, that's part of being you. And, naturally, organically having conversations with people.
Right. Yeah, they would go in and listen to, at the time, it was unreimbursed business expenses on the tax return. And it became a big deal. Now they took it out of the picture totally because they realized and I remember this one customer specifically, she was an artist, so she had her art business.
Yeah.
I don't know, they might have sold $500 in art throughout the year, but they had all these other expenses, that they put in on the unreimbursed business expenses thing. Is, you're looking at the tax return or their W-2, if they're W-2 at that, and you go, okay, they're W-2, have really easy income, no problem, that's what they make. Oh, they pulled their tax transcript, they've got X thousands of dollars. Oh, now we got to decline their income. They've gotten rid of that now, but that was a big question. Like they're listening, or did you ask that question about unreimbursed? This loan blew up because you didn't ask about it, like right off the bat. Luckily, they've gotten rid of that lending side there. All right, so you're still dabbling in insurance. You're moving over to the real estate.
Yes.
What's that day that you say, I'm going full time?
I was actually at the insurance company, and I was taking a break to call a customer back who wanted to see a house. This was probably in 2017. The market was still a little bit different there. Properties were sitting a little bit longer. They're still recovering from the recession.
Right.
But I was selling houses and I was closing deals. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is, and I couldn't show them properties.
You started making more money there than you were.
Yeah, I was. So I said, okay, this has got to go because I just want to, have the autonomy to create my own schedule and to be there for my customers. And it wasn't fair to them because I, wasn't there full time. So I let them know that I was leaving for that. Yeah, never looked back.
All right, so if you've listened to any of my podcasts, I like to dig into this because I think this is one of the most important pieces to a real estate agent's success. There's some agents that can pretty much work for any brokerage because they just do it all themselves. They understand the business. They just go. Yeah. But there's a lot that don't renew after 2 years, right? We know 80% don't even renew their license. There's this huge turnover.
Right.
Every year when they come up on their 2-year renewal. The brokerage. That very first brokerage for you, how are you introduced? Was somebody, did you know somebody was working there? Obviously you were working part-time with them, but what was the first brokerage choice? How did you come upon them?
You want me to tell you the name or just leave that out?
You can. It's on your LinkedIn if anyone wants to read. But if you can use names. I don't use names. You are welcome to use any name.
Berkshire Hathaway, and they're a great brokerage. I wanted to start with them because I lived in Atlantic Beach, so they were right around the corner from my place.
Perfect.
And I thought it would be great. Easy to pop into the office, and I met a lot of great people there, and it was fantastic. But then I maybe get bored, I guess, and I move along and wanted to learn something else. I actually think that because I've been with many brokerages, I've learned a lot along the way.
Right.
But I went to Exit Real Estate Gallery after that, and that was another fantastic brokerage. But then I moved on and went to Sotheby's, and then I went to Keller Williams. I was probably there maybe a year and a half or so, and then moved on to Engel Völkers, and I've been there 5 years.
So those are probably roughly 1 year stints at each place, give or take a couple months, whatever.
Yeah.
So, Did you make the change thinking, as many people think the grass is greener, right? It's going to be greener over there. Like you said, you learned stuff from them, but there had to be a value drop in where you were at, where you're like, I thought I was going to get this, and that might have lasted a couple months, and then all of a sudden the third month it started to go downhill, and you're like, I came over here for that, and we've changed the attitude, the culture.
I think that every brokerage really has something to offer, and I won't name any names, but there's one particular brokerage I was with that I think caters to new agents, and they have excellent training programs. But when I went on with them, I wasn't a new agent. I needed a little bit more. I was delving into the luxury market a little bit because, at the beach, our prices are higher. So I can't help it. It's just a victim of where I live, circumstance.
Right. But it's an ideal place where any agent would love to be working.
Right. My average sales price, I think, is around $700,000. But again, I deal with other properties that are lower in value, but it's just the beaches are, continually growing.
It's your home turf.
Right. And then I think competing brokers, I was with a broker who had a competing broker. And for me, that's not, really where I wanted to be. And I saw that all my calls for my listings were going directly to them and they weren't answering and the voicemail wasn't picking up and I wasn't getting the calls. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
But, and then I thought I had luxury support.
Because they were putting the office number on the listing instead of your cell phone.
For the competing broker.
Right.
Brokerage. Yeah.
So a tip to anyone out there who's in a situation like this, make sure your number is on there so you don't run into this situation.
My seller tested it. When I listed the $2 million property, he called the number to see where it went. And it went to that brokerage, and the voicemail was full. I know, right? So that didn't last very long. With me. There.
Yeah.
But
and it's not. And I've heard people say, or I've heard some brokers say, we're not in production, as if that's a selling point. But really, is a selling point that you have integrity?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you have to have integrity. But I think, for the particular brokerage where that happened, and they were competing brokers, they were too busy on their own things to offer support. And anytime you start any new brokerage, you need some kind of support, whether it's admin, marketing, just training, coming on board. You can't just send them to the wolves.
I think, I talked to Pamela Hoffman, who I think kind of got to the same thing, why she went to Engel, and I know everyone. Like I said on that show, I haven't heard anyone say anything negative about Corey yet. Maybe we'll find something, but because obviously he sets is all Engel Völkers that kind of have that. And you're going to use the word attitude, but they do want that someone who's already producing. They're not hiring a new agent unless you're coming in with a team or something like that. From what I understand and talking to Corey, he really wants producers. And so, I don't know if all Engel Völkers kind of have that attitude, or that Corey's kind of thing here in First Coast.
You have to do a minimum of $3 million annually to be able to.
That's kind of all Engel Völkers' attitude.
Also, he wants to interview people to make sure that they're a good fit for our brand. Because not everyone is, It just really depends. I think if you look at a lot of these, social media pages for some realtors, I'm like astonished on some of the things they put online.
Right.
I think that your customers are also watching and following you, so you really need to be careful about your choice of words and, what you're posting and things like that. I think that he does a good job in managing and making sure that he has the right people.
I just use the example. I can imagine, when you guys do have your sales meetings and so forth, it's a higher level conversation.
Right.
Than a lot of the stuff, like you said, at some of these brokerages that do cater to the newer ones. It's always dulled down because the majority of the people in that room, to where your more experienced agencies do just go out and do their own thing, and maybe they're asked to come in and train.
True.
So they're given some ego there to be able to be put in front of the room. But the attitude at Engel Völkers is everyone's a high level, and you're probably sharing, and you got people who want to know some of the stuff you're doing, like dealing with investors, because that's the level of real estate that they want to be dabbling in.
So we do agent roundtables, I think, once a month, and basically it's a conference call. Sometimes we do them in person, but on those calls or webinars that we do, we're talking about what's going on in the market and how we can continue to elevate ourselves. It's not about how can we get leads, how can we do this, how can we do that, because most of us are experienced agents who already have a sphere of influence. So I think with the other brokerages, depending on if they cater to newbies, they're talking about, hey, how do you build a sphere of influence? How do you do this? How can you touch your people? And not to say we don't do that, but I think we're trying to stay on top of, there's so much going on in the real estate industry right now, and we're trying to stay ahead of that.
And that's a great way to explain that. Exactly. They're talking about how to actually get the leads. You have the leads, and you're trying to move to another level.
Right.
You're trying to or broaden your base, like you did by finding out, how do we do flips? Now I can talk to people about flips. I have credibility in flipping because I've done my own, and dealing with the investors and so forth. You have the ability to expand. You're not worried about the next client coming in, just trying to get next month's deal to move forward. That's put it a great way.
Yeah.
And let's say a girlfriend of yours says, hey, I'm thinking about getting into real estate.
I have a lot of people ask me that.
I'm sure you do every day.
Everybody wants to get a real estate license.
What do you say? What's your answer to that? How do you address that?
To be honest with you, I tell them if you want to start out in real estate, then the first step is going to be to get your license. And I always recommend them go to the school that I went to, because I thought it was very neat, very different than most other ones out there. I can plug them if you want, but it's FloridaRealEstateSchool.com. I think they're out of Miami, and the gentleman who runs that, he has catered his training to touch to all learning styles. We're not all the same, right? We talked about that earlier. So, like some people learn auditory by hearing things, or auditory, or visual, or we're hands-on, but he really touches all three learning styles. Most people fail the test when they first take it, right? And for me, I went in to sit down for the state exam, and they give you 3 hours. I was done in an hour and a half. I'm like, whoa, I need to like double check
Yeah.
my answers. Like this just can't be possible.
Right,
and,
right.
You know, I'm like, okay, no, I'm not going to second guess myself. And I walked out, and you know, they don't tell you what your grade is. It's just if you pass or fail. I think now they've changed that, but back then they didn't. And they told me I passed. I was like, yes.
It doesn't
But,
matter as long
yeah.
as you have the P.
But he really did a good job with his training to help me prep for the state exam.
All right, going to the right school.
Yes,
All right.
that's first step.
So, all right, yeah. So, what do you when you tell them about the business? I mean, what?
I mean, that's a
because
big
everyone has their image of what.
Right.
You know, of course, we see what we see on TV or in social media.
Yeah.
Do you kind of tell them like, 80% fall out? So, not that I'm going to say you're falling out because you don't want to be negative to them, but percentages is you are.
Yeah, it really is a big commitment, and that's why I start with the school, and I say, okay, here's where I went to school, and I highly recommend that you, check them out.
Right.
And if you want to get further, I've had some people that are close to me that, I said, okay, I'll kind of give you the ropes after you get your feet wet a little bit and get your license, because that in itself is probably going to take 6 months for the average person, but most people don't make it that far, just like they don't in real estate.
Right.
Like you said, I think it's, oh gosh, I don't even know if I know the stats right now, but when I took my test, I was shocked to learn how many people failed the first time around. I think it's like 3 out of 5 fail, and then the second time around 2 out of 5 fail. So most people can't even make it past the testing, and then once you get past that, stay in the business. The first 2 years you might not make any money.
Right.
I would say the first year I was making money. I was making equivalent to what I was doing in life insurance. So for me, it made sense to move out.
For you, in that first year, were you generating stuff, or was it the brokerage that you got with, and maybe a mentor or something that helped you out, or were you really just on your own?
I was on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. And plus, I was working a full-time job. So working a full-time job, doing that part-time. I mean, it was hard. I didn't have time to go in and, into the
Sitting
office
3 hours in the morning and make cold
Yeah.
calls as some offices, they do for the new agents. So hey, 8 to 11 or 9 to 12, whatever it is, you got to make whatever amount of phone calls.
And no one wants to use you when you're new, right?
Right.
So even your family members, like I had a family member searching for a house, and I was really bummed because they didn't want to use me. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But
there's always someone though in your family who will only use you.
Yes.
Whether it's your first sale, last sale, it doesn't matter. There is those too, but there are people,
There are.
I'm in the mortgage side. I mean, there's a lot. I know, and I don't say nothing to them. I understand. They may we know each other. We know people. They may not want me to know their finances.
Yeah.
Others, are just like, hey, I want to do it, through you, and I won't go with anyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
But now they all want to use me, for the most part. But it's okay. I mean,
They better by now. What?
I realize that I won't always get all the customers, and that's okay. I mean, I don't cry over something that's not going to happen, and I'm going to get business, and I do. So I don't worry about that.
So what was you got your license? You were that with Berkshire, by the way. How do you drum up the first business? Was it family?
I was hoping you were going to ask me that. Let me tell you about my very first customer.
Okay.
So I was in Trader Joe's. I love that place. I'm going there a couple times a week. And I have my name tag on. So I recommend if you're new in the business, always wear
Always
your
have
name
your name tag on.
Always, because then you might be able to stem a conversation from that. So I was in this guy's line. He was a cashier. And I think I had wine or something in my basket. And I was laughing at him. He wanted to see my ID. And I was like, I would love to show you my ID. Nobody asks for that anymore. Anyway, he looked at my tag. He said, are you a realtor? And I said, yes, I am. He said, my wife and I are moving back to Arkansas. He said, you know what? Everyone else comes through my line. They put their head down, but you conversate with me and you talk, and I like your personality. I know my wife would love you. We want you to list our house. And it was right around the corner in Jack's Beach. I called my broker, said, I got my first listing. What do I do? But I could tell you about every customer and every sale that I've had. I don't do quantity of transactions. I do quality of transactions. So I think I had 23 last year. And I do enough to manage my business, enough to be able to have a personal life as well.
Right.
But I think that there's something to be said about that, the quality over quantity.
You're tipping a point of wearing your name tag. I mean, I think a lot of corporate America, or a lot of other jobs, where if you're wearing a name tag, they're taking it off as they're walking out the door at office. How important is it, especially like those people who are asking you what's it like to be a real estate agent? You live what you do. It's not a job. It's almost like a lifestyle.
It is.
And letting everyone know what you do in a casual way.
Yeah. And it's funny because I don't really have time to have friends. So I don't have a lot of friends. My friends, become my customers, kind of become friends. Like
Right.
we've hung out, my husband and I, we do dinner with some of them in the evening, and we enjoy that. But, I'm so busy that I really don't have a lot of time for a personal life, like other than, when he and I travel
Right.
occasionally. I really just kind of put myself fully into my work.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think of one thing, people, they get the HGTV, right, image of what a real estate agent is.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the things, like, oh, they're going out and having drinks or going out to dinner with their clients. Oh, house. But that's all part of, it's not that the part of the benefits is you are getting that human reaction. You are having good conversation or whatever. That's like the benefit. But part of it is they're going out because they obviously like and respect you.
Yes.
That's why they accepted the dinner invitation, or maybe they invited you to dinner.
Sometimes I've invited them to dinner as a closing gift, and we'll go to a fancy restaurant and we all eat dinner together with their family, and it's a great way to, get to know them even better, and they appreciate that.
Right.
And those have been long-term customers who come back for repeat business.
100%. You don't separate the business with the pleasure, if you wanted to, or this networking social interaction. It's everyone knows you're a realtor. Everyone needs hopefully not, most people need a real estate agent sometime during their life, whether it's just one time, whether it's, like I said, some people move every 3 to 5 years.
Right.
It's kind of slowed down what the interest rates were, but when interest rates were 3%, 4%, people were moving from neighborhood to neighborhood every other year.
They sure were.
Yeah. My friends live over there. I want to move.
So many customers that I have done about 3 transactions on average with them.
Yeah.
And helped like their parents, or they've referred people to me. I do subscribe to Boomtown. That's one thing that we, Corey's office, it was a requirement for me because I was used to that over at
Keller?
Exit.
Okay.
Exit had Boomtown.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have any success with it then. It's sort of like a trickle business for me now. Like most of my business is sphere of influence, but I've had a few Boomtown customers that are very, very, been very successful with them. And I would say I've probably closed about 20 million with Boomtown leads. I've got one I closed last week, and all together with him, 3 transactions and probably 3 million in the
Who you
last
met
12
from
months.
Boomtown years ago, and just this
Last year.
Last year. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I think it's, if you are subscribing to any kind of a lead database, system, then you've got to work it. If they reach out and have a question, you've got to respond immediately. I'm just making sure that you're touching them.
I use the term resource. How important, you like you said, you got your 10-mile stretch of beach out there that you like the ground pound on.
Yeah.
How important is it to be that resource that I'm sure you're having clients call you later? Do you know a good landscaper, or
All the time.
to have those relationships and be able to recommend to them, you need to use this person, and I imagine some of the price points, you're in some elite neighborhoods too,
Right.
so you have to have the service that caters to that.
So all too often I get, from my buyers, and it's a great thing for me to be knowledgeable in the area of, renovations and what things cost. So I've got buyers right now I'm helping to find, a condo at the beach. And everyone we've been through, what do you think about this? Can you move that wall? Or can you do this? Some of those older buildings, they have lower ceilings, and they really only have about like 1/8 of an inch between them and the concrete. So you can't like add normal light fixtures.
Right.
It has to be this, thing that
Track.
a track. Yeah. And, also most of the walls are not load bearing, but then you've got plumbing and electrical throughout there. So it's really hard to change the layout of a condo, but also knowing what it costs to pull up like existing flooring, and put down new flooring. So all those things really come as a great benefit for me when I'm working with my buyers or sellers and they want to make changes.
With the people that because obviously the beaches, there are some new construction. Obviously, you're working with those townhomes. There's some, but a lot of the homes are a little bit older. I know some agents I've had on, the general population, I should say, in the, probably whatever you could consider, from 0 to 500,000 or 600,000 right now in this area, depending where you're at. A lot of those clients really want turnkey houses that are set.
Yeah.
You agree? So if you're selling a home that needs a little work, what are you recommending to that seller so it's prepared for that buyer?
I mean, I think most people do want turnkey, but you'd be surprised. Some people want to go in and put their own personal touch on it. So they want it for the most part done, especially in a condo, because you have so many restrictions with hours that you can work and getting approval by the board and, the extra expense because it's a condo. You can't just put a dumpster in front of a condo, when you're taking things out. I'm going through that right now. My husband and I are renovating a condo that we bought right next to ours. But for the most part, they want turnkey because it is a lot of hassle and expense. And they
finding
don't have
the right
resources.
contractors that will show up and
exactly.
Yeah.
But I've got a Rolodex of them. And, some I've had to let go. I've learned, I think, from my own mistakes and certain contractors, and then you kind of take that on, you learn from it, and you can help your next client because they're not going to make that mistake, tell them what you went through, But yeah, I think for the most part, people want something that's turnkey. And for the most part, everything that I have designed, like whether it be this one that I'm working on right now, I've got a seller in Jack's Beach, and I normally don't like to imitate other designs that I've done, but I did use like the same backsplash in the kitchen because it's fabulous. I used it in my personal townhome, and I just think that it's really going to make that extra oomph, that something when they walk in, and
well, they like that. In fact, I chose this backsplash because I researched it, and and they already have some sort of respect for your eye on the design, and I use this myself. Yeah, that's a huge endorsement there, right? They're like, then I need to have it.
Exactly. But like trends, some of the things that are going out are like people still love the farmhouse look, and don't get me wrong, it's great. Okay, but it's a little overplayed, and of course, some of those investors who go in and flip houses and they're putting all gray everything in there. Or all white kitchens. There's just no character, no style. So people want that balance in between, that character and that style, and that looks fresh and modern and kind of organic. So
when you're working, because obviously majority of the sales are really, you said your average is 700. Really, the majority of sales are sub that, and in the planned urban developments, Nocatee and all that. Well, the Nocatee's pushing 100. But when you're dealing with those clients in the 1.2, 1.5, $2 million, and you're going in to list their home, with the $700,000-$800,000 seller, you're like, hey, you're competing against new construction. We need to put some incentives in here. This is how we need to price it because these are what these new homes are going for. But when you're dealing that $1.5, $2 million, they generally have a home that's probably somewhat unique there. How do you approach that in a listing appointment that, the value or what you're going to do versus that $600,000 seller?
That's a good question. I always evaluate whether or not, we need to stage a property. I've staged properties on my own. I could show you pictures. Or I use the same furniture in like a $1.5 million house that I use in a $600,000 house. Right. But it's all about how you, position it. I think staging is important, being able to walk through and, talk to them about moving things around. I do have a professional I sometimes bring in to help me, to get things to where we need to be to go to market.
Do you stage a lot of the homes or semi-stage some of them? Because, maybe they don't have the right furniture in a room. You need to just make it look a little more.
I did do that for a property that, I helped my brother and sister-in-law sell their townhome probably about a year and a half ago. And I did mailers in that community. I got a call from a seller who had her property on the market for 6 months with no offers. And I went in there and I basically told her, you need to paint this room. Let's make it all, one color, because whenever you walk in, it just breaks it up from the eye. Yep. So it makes it look smaller when she had this sunroom that was green and everything else was, off-white. Right. So she did that. We moved a light. She had a light that was supposed to be in a dining room over in like an office area. I said, let's make this a dining room. Yeah. And then we brought in a stager. Sometimes I'll stage myself, but lately I don't have time, so I'll bring in a really good one that I know. And I said, all right, let's make this, she just brought in pieces. But I knew that it needed something, and we had multiple offers and went $28,000 above list price. Wow! In the first weekend. In the first weekend, yes. After 6 months of selling. The first weekend, and I mean, like. After 6 months with no offers. With less of an hour of observation and doing, and then moving those pieces, maybe another hour. Right. So a couple hours of. Yeah. Strategically, that's what blows my mind, because I know agents that do what you do, and then of course we know the agents that let that sit there for 6 months and like didn't even make why, right? And it would blow my mind that you were the first person that actually suggested to paint that room, because of those things. Right.
But this is going on all over the place.
It is. I mean, not everyone has the eye. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of real estate agents that I guess people say they just open doors or whatever they do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm sure they all have their own little unique thing that why they're in the business and they do well. But I kind of take it that extra mile with my customers, and if I see something that needs to be changed, I'll let them know.
Because I mean, the attitude is, I would imagine, of a lot of sellers right now is they still do have the 2020, 21 where they're going to put that house up, and that first weekend they have multiple offers.
Right.
And yeah, if you have the perfect house in the perfect neighborhood on the golf course with the pool, whatever, those things, and a 3-car garage, it's going to sell in St. Johns County overnight.
In 21, they were like paying your kids' college to get the house.
Yeah.
Like, I had this one property, and these people have bought 3 properties from me, bought and sold. They referred both their parents after they had kids, so they've been great referral for me, great customers. But they had 48 offers on their home that I listed, and that was during COVID at the height of the market. Now talk about managing 48 offers. Whew. I had a matrix, a spreadsheet, basically that I went through all the offers and checked off and wrote down the different terms of each offer. So that was great for them because they're very analytical and they like to see things like that. So I think again that goes back to learning how your customer likes to do business with you and knowing them and what they would appreciate.
You come in with the evaluation. The evaluation, asking the questions, your questionnaire, that type of thing. All of a sudden, you build credibility, because I would guess, with being a fly on the wall, that if they spoke to other agents, they're not getting a thorough evaluation like you're doing. And now you have them. Now they're putty because you've got them to expose all the things. So when you come back with recommendations, it's, well, you said in the questionnaire that this was important to you.
Right.
So this is what you need to do. You need to paint this room.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm bringing up things I never even thought about with portability.
Right.
If they're a seller moving to the next property, you need to make sure that their portability is maximized from the market value. So no one's doing that.
One of the key things I got from Cindy Hayden, who was last year's chair of NAR's insurance committee, was flood insurance. That's another thing with portability is people don't realize you can assume someone else's previous flood policy, which could save you thousands of dollars.
There's certain companies that allow you to do that, but you're right, totally right. You don't have to go out and get a brand new policy, depending on the company.
But the new tip now with insurance getting crazy is get the seller's current policy,
right?
And what they're covering. That whole you need to get those things, because there's these insurance discounts. They don't want to tell you all about them, but if you have them, they're like, oh yeah, you got that. Type of thing. I mean, then totally wanted to put that tip in there because you mentioned that. And
that's a great point.
What my next question was going to be.
And it's okay if you don't know it all, and I don't know it all because, like I said, every interaction is different. Every transaction is different. I learn something new every day, but after doing this for, 8+ years, I mean, I feel like I've really got a good handle on the everyday items that pop up.
I know what I wanted to ask, because building into that questionnaire, that's where I was going with. Because now you've asked them all the questions. Now you've gained credibility. You're like, oh, this is a professional. Because if you walked in the doctor's office, they're going to do the same thing. They're not just going to hand you a bottle of aspirin and say, hey, thanks for coming in.
That's right.
They got to diagnose the issue.
Yes, you have to get to know them.
Right. So you're asking those and exposing those things. Now you've got the credibility. So now when you go ask, I think a lot of agents are bashful, don't want to tell them that, or they're like you said, there's a lot of agents obviously came on in in 2020, 21, where they really just stuck the sign in the yard.
Right.
And they got offers, so they thought that was great.
Yeah. And that was easy back then, but a lot of those people are getting out of the business because they realize now, it's harder than they thought. And if you're not building relationships in this business, then you're not going to have a business for a while.
I think because I personally know one agent's just like what you're talking, doing the evaluation and going in and saying, that's your professionalism. When the whole NAR lawsuit is they're saying agents aren't, they're not worth what their commissions are. Is basically the kind of the underlying thing they're saying, although it's a totally cash grab, but that's what they're claiming. They hire you as the listing agent. It's more than just the sign. You got to go in there. Maybe you got to pick some weeds. Maybe you got to paint the room.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I've moved trash out of a garage when we closed on a house because they had already gone. That was actually my first listing. I'm like, you left all this. I gotta move it now. But, we wear so many hats. And you really have to be able to adapt. Again, that kind of goes back to being a chameleon. Can you be a therapist? Can you be a mover? Can you be a stager? Can you be a you're a little bit of everything.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Design.
Sometimes you got to get in there and do some sweat work just to get it, because it's not a huge job. it's too small, and by the time somebody you could hire to get over there, they probably wouldn't do it right. You just got to get in there and do it yourself, and you show up in your dirty clothes and you sweat a little bit to get it right. That's why I think a lot of people don't understand that. I think it's key, if anyone's listening to this right now, your evaluation, and they should call you. I'm sure you've shared this with other people. What are you asking? If you don't know what to be asking, or maybe you do ask a few questions but don't know all the questions, that maybe you should be asking some others. They should be calling you and asking for that advice.
I'd be happy to share my, I hate to call it a script because earlier it was scripts, but there is, a form that I use that I ask, on every call where I engage with a new buyer. If I don't know them, like I have one recently that I was referred to me from a previous client, and I'm helping him now find a house. But I went through that script with him, and he's already referred another customer to me. Yeah. So it's like that's how it happens. It's a domino effect. But I'd be happy to share that. And in that script too, there's a lot of verbiage about, you never know who's going to be a first-time home buyer, and they don't really know about the process. But this has a nice process, and it's got all the verbiage about real estate.
So you're giving them like a little
loans.
packet almost.
Yeah, it's got a little packet. Yep. It even has at the end a house hunting checklist. So once we get into starting to look, I always print off the MLS sheet and I'll staple it to the house hunting checklist. Because if we're viewing, 5 or try not to go over 6 in a day, I think they all start to run together. But if you're in a short period of time and they're close together, it's okay. And then that way they can keep track in their mind because they want to check off, what did they like about it, what they didn't like about it, pros, cons, and things like that.
But you actually, the page that asks the questions, you ask for that back.
Yeah.
So you're giving, because I think
I have it on me, and I usually email it to them if we're doing our call via phone.
Right.
And then I say, I let them know a few days ahead of time. I send that to them. I've had some of them fill it out and send it back to me.
Right.
But I'm like, okay, we're still going to have a conversation and talk about this.
Right. Yeah. Because you got to get the in between the lines conversation.
There's
part.
Nothing like a real you and I are doing.
But I would imagine I know there's people laugh about it. There are some people who have these buyer packets, seller packets, right? The fact that you are highly recommending they fill this out, and obviously you can tell how interested your customer is and how close they are to sell. They go right in there and fill that out, and they're sending it back to you a couple hours later. I think they're ready to do something.
Right. Normally I tell them, hey, I'm sending you this packet. I just want you to be prepared for our call. I'm going to ask you the questions on our call, and we'll cover anything else in between. So I don't really require them to fill it out, but then you have some, people that are a little bit ahead of the game, and they'll just send it back to me all, filled out. But then we do still have a conversation on the phone.
100%.
Yeah. But it lets them know what to expect. I think setting the right expectation is, very important in our industry and any other industry for that fact.
So, were you doing a buyer's agreement before? Are you doing one now? Or are you starting? Are they? What's Corey? What are you guys talking about at Engel Völkers First Coast as far as the buyer's agreement and the, that it might become a requirement here or something?
I had never done one before, but yes, we are going to be required to do them going forward as of July 1st.
Right.
And I don't think that's a problem.
It hasn't technically been settled, but I have a feeling they're going to mold that in to say that we're doing it in the ethics of the world.
I have no problem, presenting that to buyers, and I've got, a couple now that I've already done that with, and they understand. It's all about how you explain
with your questionnaire, you're molding. You just mold that right into that morph that right into that packet. Is okay. Hey, read these. He's got some questions, and then our buyer's agreements in the back. And by the time they get to it, because you've asked the questions up front, I think 9 out of 10 are not even going to blink.
I agree. Completely agree. Yeah. And you know what? If they do, then maybe they're not the right buyer for me.
100%.
Maybe they're not a good fit, and that's okay.
Obviously, I've never bought or sold a home with you.
Yeah.
I think this evaluation, the evaluation up front is one of your sweet spots, and obviously doing it consistently, because we know people probably have done it. They didn't get a full reaction out of the person. I don't want to do that anymore. You got to do that with everyone, and I'm sure you've tweaked it over the years.
Yes. The
questions you're asking, you're getting that information. What during your sales process, what would you say is another big thing that you really focus on that you think is so important in the process that you are putting that little extra energy as you are doing with that evaluation up front?
After the evaluation and we do the questionnaire, I keep that for my files. Typically I'll put it in, I'll scan it and save it in their email files. I try to be as organized as possible, even, with the inbox online and any other systems I use. But getting them pre-qualified, want to make, if they're not paying cash, make sure they get pre-qualified. And then we have a meeting, usually before we start looking for houses. But a lot of times they just want to jump ahead.
Jump right into the house.
Don't really know the process.
Right.
So, when you let them know, they want to get in the driver's seat, and that's fine, but you kind of let them know how it's
Do you
gonna
try to
go.
bring them into these fancy Engel Völkers offices as Corey's designed all over town, looking beautiful?
I know they are great. We have them everywhere now.
Yeah.
But no, believe it or not, most people don't come into the office.
Right.
We just don't. We have a lot of phone conversations, and then too, I've met them in person. Where I like to pick them up. Depending on, how I've met them or if they were a referral, I tell them, listen, I want you to get in my car if you're okay with that. And I want to drive around so that you can focus on the community and the neighborhood. Because if they're in their car and they've got all these sheets and they're trying to
100%.
figure out where they're going, and,
Yeah.
it's just so much a better experience for them. I'm all about the experience. And again, that goes back to luxury as a service. I have waters for them in the car, and I have, all the sheets prepared. I've got a clipboard they can take into the
The
house.
Uber real estate agents? Is that what
Yeah,
you call the
right?
show? The Uber real estate?
I guess so. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But,
Well, you're 100% right. Because they're not focused on what turns are, because that's not important
Yeah.
right now.
No, it's
but they're
not.
seeing the restaurants that might be nearby, or
Trust me, they love it.
Yeah.
When I pick them up and I've got waters for the rest. Sometimes I've packed a little cooler when I know we have a long day, and I'll have ice in there with waters and like snacks like blueberries or something.
Right, right. Yeah. How important, I mean, like you said, you try, it doesn't always happen that way, but it sounds like you focus on having some sort of face-to-face. Or I know some agents, good ones, they'll try to at least have a Zoom. So you are making,
Yes.
if they've never seen you before,
Right.
they're getting seeing your face and just, because people, I think, discount why you're told to do video at every conference you guys go to.
Right.
Is because people are building a relationship even though you're looking at a TV screen or your
Yes.
computer screen or phone screen
Yes.
with the person who's talking through it.
And in most cases, I would say, once you have that face-to-face conversation with them, especially if you've met in person, they're going to be committed to you. But until then, you're just somebody at the other end of the computer screen.
It's real easy to cut you off. Yep,
exactly.
Yep. And say I can't meet or don't show up.
Right. And I can gauge their level of commitment. They know that I'm committed. So I think it's taken that extra step. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. How do you prep your clients? Because I imagine some of these, especially some you start getting these million, the repairs get bigger, right? What are you doing in the process? When after that inspection's done, imagine some of these several million homes, they could probably spend several $1,000s on their inspection,
Yeah.
and so the inspector's got to give them something.
Yes.
How do you handle that? Do you prep them, and then how do you prep yourself for a negotiation?
It depends on the property. And when I say that, during COVID, there was no repair requests. Like, people were accepting properties as is, waive an appraisal, all that, but we're not really in that market right now. So I do prep my sellers and my buyers to let them know that, hey, even though we're offering this price, if we find any issues, inspector's going to let us know on the report, and then we're going to talk about it, discuss it, and decide if it's something big enough that we need to ask for. I mean,
Right.
in most cases, inspectors are always going to find something, right? It's kind of like
That's their
appraisal.
job.
They all have their opinion,
Yeah.
and they're all going to find something they think is off. But if it's not a health or a safety hazard, or not, functioning at all, then maybe if it's a toilet flapper, maybe we could, have
Yeah.
somebody do that, a handyman. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But then, recently I had one that had a little mold issue, and we had a mold remediation company come in, and we got a credit from the seller for $2,000. It really just depends on what the issue is. But
Right.
with sellers, I let them know, hey, we're going to have a buyer come aboard. They're going to have an inspection done, and whatever comes back on the inspection, we may have to negotiate. So I have this upcoming listing where we did a pre-inspection, a 4-point, and we did a pre-appraisal too. So it's kind of we were guinea pigs for this title company that asked if we would, do that. And I'm like, heck yeah, we'll do that. This is great. So they checked the portability, and I'm like, I normally do that anyway, but let's have somebody else do it.
Yeah, they're adding value
Yeah.
to you guys.
So I think, it's not right for every property, but if you have that unique property, there's always an anomaly out there. Maybe have it pre-appraised and see what the value is,
When you are
or
working
pre-inspected.
when you are working with an existing property, like I said, it's a different buyer when you're in that 1.5, 2 million plus, type situation. And like I said, that the repairs on those houses are just that much more.
Yes.
When you go out to list, like this mold thing, that could have been a big, and it probably really wasn't that big of an issue. It's Florida.
Yeah.
You're going to, if you want to find mold in a house, you can somewhere. It's, as Austin Gray says,
Right.
it's there somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you try to coach some of those, someone selling a $2 million house? Hey, we really want to make sure there's no, big hiccups, something in the attic. I remember years ago, I heard one, there was, I don't know, couple $1 million home, the few that are in Palencia, and it was one of the original ones. They got up in the attic for the home inspection and found, rodent feces all over the place and stuff like that. And obviously it killed the sale because they're like, oh, you're going to have this cleaned out, clean professionally or whatever, that type of thing. And they walked away from it.
Right.
Because where that could have been, again, just a couple $1,000s to have that done, to the buyer, it's like, oh my God, there's rodent.
What
okay,
else?
welcome to Florida.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
I definitely think it's good to inspect a property if you think there may be issues, or if you're not sure about, maybe you have an investor who's never lived in the property, so they don't really have any information on the property. But a lot of investors don't really want to know information on the property. Have these sellers disclosures that state never lived in the property, not disclosing anything. So then it's kind of, buyer beware, just have to do your own due diligence. But if you've got a legitimate seller who's lived in the property, maybe they don't know this, don't know that, maybe there's an issue. I think bringing someone in ahead of time is good, and facing the problem up front before it becomes one.
Because I'm sure you've dealt with, a lot of agents have had it happen to them, depending on how many deals they do. It's happened where, because people were chasing after properties in 20 and 21, they were grabbing a property that they just defaulted to.
Oh, yeah.
They get under contract, and all of a sudden 2 weeks later, they've got a house over here that, oh, no, that's the one I really want. So they go on the inspection report and said, hey, the light thing is upside down. Okay, I don't want to buy the home.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I'm just, but there's always something on the report, and obviously the appraisals weren't really an issue, but on the inspection report, it doesn't matter what it is. They just say, I don't like that. I don't want to buy the home.
Right.
And so they were using that obviously to get out and go buy, go make an offer over here. Meanwhile, the seller just took their house off the market for the last 2 weeks, and now you're putting it back on. And what do you agents do? Go, oh, I wonder why this house is back on the market.
Always. And I'm always
must be something wrong with it.
What happened? Why did it go back on the market?
Right.
And we want that backstory. And so do the buyers. They look at Zillow. It's so funny because I never look at Zillow. I should probably look at it more because that's where everybody else looks.
Right.
But
see where they're getting their information.
I know. They'll
cut it off at the pass.
They're telling Zillow that it came back on the market, or they sold it in whatever year for this much. People are looking at that stuff. But I think facing those kind of things head on, and how you manage it too when it's presented to you. Like if you get the mold, report that we got back. Knowing that the seller wasn't really there in the property very much, like maybe a couple times in the past 5 years, and the inspector found, surface mold, so it wasn't really a big deal. It could have been a big deal, you never know, till you start, tearing apart stuff.
Right.
But having a good inspection company on your side too, to find those kind of things, and then how you present it, talk to the buyer about it.
I'm a big pre-listing inspection person, just because I've been in the business long enough that that's their excuse out.
Right.
So if I can kill all their excuses as soon as that contract's signed, because I know how much you work just to get the contract signed.
And another point about that too, if you have it pre-inspected, you can hire a handyman or do the repair yourself. But once you get the property under contract, you've got a buyer on board and they have a lender, and depending on the type of financing, you have to hire licensed professionals to do things that would require electricity or roof or plumbing. And if you've got a cousin who does plumbing, then you could have him come in and do it beforehand.
Change out the toilet or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's definitely
100%.
good to do that. It could save them a little, cash in the front if they, do the pre-inspection.
Over your years, I'm going to wind down here.
Okay.
We'll try to go through these quick. Someone is your support, maybe it was a broker like Corey, or a mentor? Holly just did it by herself.
No, I mean, everyone.
I'll change the question.
Yeah.
Especially at Engel Völkers, because there's a lot of.
Corey is a fantastic broker.
Right.
I mean, obviously we have 140 people right now, and I think I'm a pretty self-motivated. I kind of I'm able to do most. Every now and then, I have questions for him. Things he's always.
There's always something new that comes up, some curveball.
Like the support that he provides, for us as a whole, as a team, through the webinars and the agent things that we do once a month is fantastic. And that's something I've never had at a brokerage. But
maybe you didn't have a direct mentor, but I mean, the fact that you've been at Engel Völkers now for over 5 years, the level of other agents, you guys are, I wouldn't say you're all on the same level, but you're on a high level. To be able, there's a lot of them that have been been in the area as long as you have. Some of them been in the area doing business as long as you've been in the area, type of thing, and to be able to call on them.
Yeah.
And how important is that to kind of have those, we always talk about the 5 people that you surround yourself with.
That's
well, in
true.
real estate, to have, 5 or 6 these people are experienced, and when you call them and say, I have this situation, they're going to tell you, you know what, I've never dealt with that, but I think so-and-so has.
Right.
Or they're going to be able to say, yep, I've dealt with this, and this is how he did it. And you have faith in them that they're giving you the...
Absolutely. I mean, we have a great support team. It's like a family, our brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
If I had a question, I've got a commercial property coming up. I've never sold a commercial property, but you know what? I'm up for the challenge, and these people want me to list, actually family members. But, I had to reach out to another agent who sold a commercial in and she gave me great advice, and it wasn't anything I didn't already knew, but just to be able to reach out, and talk on the phone with somebody is to get that support we needed. Now, I will plug my husband because he is fantastic. I keep telling him he should get his real estate license, but anyway, he's kind of my support too. And if I
he does some back end research for you.
I bounce things off of him.
Okay.
He owned his own CPA firm, the Griggs Group.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that. In Ponte Vedra, they sold to another company, the Pivot, but he's got a lot of managerial experience and working with people, and and that high level.
Yeah. Some of those high level clients you're talking about, you have to talk financials with them, because some of them are buying investment properties, and it's not an emotional, like, this is going to be where I'm going to live. Is this property, how am I going to work the numbers, the tax, the tax, all that stuff.
Yes.
But to go kind of circle the 2 questions we talked about, brokerages, and then people always asking you about real estate. How important is it for them to go out and find that brokerage, that ideally the office, but and maybe you are at different brokerages. I know some people are at different brokerages, and they have their circle of people are at different brokerages. To find those people, to reach out, have coffee with them, and interact with them, and collaborate with them, and talk shop. Yeah.
I've actually had 2 people reach out, one at my brokerage and one was not at my brokerage, but reached out and asked me to do coffee with them. And I think people see you online and they see your success, and I'm always willing to do that. If anyone out there wants to have coffee, please let me know. I did it this week and I did it last week. Happy to, when time allows, put it on the schedule.
What is some of the information that they're asking you? What are these agents that are obviously trying to reach out? They're trying to find a lane or whatever it is, or someone that's hopefully going to help them make the next step if they want to make it wherever they're trying. What are some of the questions they're asking you?
I think for the most part, like the one that was not at our current brokerage, wanting to get into more of the luxury market, maybe do some of the design like I do, but, I think it's a special niche. I mean, I'm not saying no one can do it. Obviously, anyone can do anything.
You kind of have to have the eye for it, right? It's wherever that comes from.
Right. So, but, basically about how to get into the kind of market and niche that I'm doing. Another agent, asked about Boomtown. She had heard, I'd sold like $20 million from Boomtown leads, and that's probably only from a handful of them, like 5 Boomtown leads that led to other sales.
Right.
But I think for the most part, what I'm doing to be successful in different aspects.
Right. If you don't have the eye necessarily, don't feel you have the eye, maybe you have it but don't even realize you have it, and you're challenging what your mind is telling you to tell them, would you invest in pay someone $50 to come over for an hour to walk the house with you and give you a couple design ideas? Or these stagers, really, would you agree some of these stagers, that's their jam, is to look at a house and give you, this room should be painted. We need to stage this one, but we don't have to stage that one. Save them some money over here, whatever it is. Yeah.
I think it's mainly, hiring professionals to help you. I've turned down design work. I've had people reach out to me, see my post online and saying, hey, I love what you did with that. That's like my style. Would you help, my customer? I have agents reach out and tell me their customers wanted me to design their properties. But I don't really do design like that.
You're not in that consulting world yet.
No. Well,
the next business.
I don't know that I ever will be. I think I like it the way it is right now. It's kind of a mixture of, so I design my own personal projects and I also design for my investors. But I like doing it for my investors because, at the end of it, I'm going to list that property and I know everything about it. And there's no one better to sell that property than me when I've been involved from the beginning.
But having a good stager is so vitally important. I think people are underestimating, even with some of these properties that are like I said, the 3-car garage on the golf course with a pool, easy one to sell. But you can get the multiple offers and go over and really blow your seller out by maybe taking a few minutes and stage it.
I agree.
A little sweat.
I agree. There's some really good ones out there.
I'm going to finish with this, and then you can add anything you want. I don't know
Okay.
if there's any stories you didn't tell or any questions you thought I was going to ask. The market's changed in the last 18, 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
They kept saying, hey, rates are going to drop. Rates are going to drop. We're going to, I laugh at this one person in the mortgage world who a lot of people pay money to get his information and said rates were going to drop last summer.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got anywhere close to that. And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden they're like, oh, yeah, Fannie Mae came out and said, yeah, we might see 6% somewhere around the end of 25 now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And every day I turn on Bloomberg. Are they going to cut rates? Are they going to cut rates? No, they're not, because the information is, there's true information squeaking through the cracks, and they're finding this stuff out. So the markets have changed. Based on your experience, prior to 2016 to 20, and now what you've seen this kind of teeter-totter, to this other side now. What if you had a team of agents right now, as Corey does, what would you be telling? What should they be doing right now, in their business, whether it's a daily thing or monthly thing, just a ritual they need to be doing to make sure they survive to next month, but also, when things do turn, and I'm sorry that's on a timer, I'm going to let you answer, and I'm going to go do that. What should they be doing right now with their business?
Gosh, you kind of touched on rates there, and I agree with you, because we all heard that rates were going to cut maybe 4 times this year, and they haven't cut a single time.
Right.
I follow, I don't know if I forgot his name, but he runs the Market Distillery, and he puts out some great analytics, and I'm trying to follow him and get in his next group coming up this summer. But he mentioned that for the last 8 election years, rates have decreased. For 8 election years, except this year.
Yeah.
Why is that hapening? We don't know. But
I have my opinions.
I'm sure we all. But it's definitely, I think, stalled a little bit of the market. I wouldn't say it's a buyer's market. It's not in a eager seller's market, although there are still multiple offers happening on the right properties. But I think it's getting a little bit more balanced.
Yeah.
But the prices are not coming down. You'll see
There's
price
demand's too
reductions.
high for
Right.
that. Yeah.
Especially, we're still in an inventory shortage, and especially at the beach. So I think that, for agents, other realtors out there, and what they could be doing is know your market. Whether you, are following the Market Distillery, and they put out some great analytics. We have great resources from our MLS as well, and NEFAR. You can do stats. It's called Sun Stats, I think. And Corey always puts these out to our people. But you can do a search based on your particular zip codes that you cover and see what is the average, sales price. How many buyers are cash? How many are financing? Did you know that last year 53.6% of condo buyers were cash at the beach?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
There was just an article came out a couple of weeks ago. 54 and some change in Jacksonville are cash in all the sales. It's the highest in the nation.
Right.
Actually, there are some other Florida places that are high in the 40s, but not 55%.
And they're not affected by the interest rates.
Right.
So we're still seeing our prices increase, and that's a big part of it, I think, because we have a lot of cash buyers out there.
Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's been great being
I
here.
appreciate you coming on. Enjoyed the conversation.
Never told my story, and I appreciate you allowing me to do that
it's
today.
it's going to be memorialized out there in the internet on audio as well as the YouTube channel.
All right.
Holly, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thank
Tracy.
you.